We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. President Marcos arrives in Washington, D.C. for a 5-day official visit aimed at reaffirming the special relationship between the Philippines and the U.S. Meanwhile, during an interview with the press en route to Washington, D.C. for an official visit, President Marcos assured that the Philippines will not be used as a staging post for any military action amid tensions in the Indo-Pacific region. President Marcos' visit comes after the U.S. called on China to stop provocative and unsafe conduct in the contested South China Sea following a near collision with a Philippine Coast Guard vessel. Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said Singaporeans must remain united and uphold the country's good standing in the world amid an unprecedented global situation that is graver than what Singapore has experienced for a very long time.
Seaside is kept clean.
And the Iglesia ni Cristo teamed up with the government of Bahrain in conducting a beach cleanup drive. Our Mideast correspondent Dorlin Kalilim is at the scene for the details.
Heat of the sun.
First in our news, President Marcos Jr. arrived in Washington, D.C. for a 5-day official visit aimed at reaffirming the special relationship between the Philippines and the U.S. The president begins his 4-day trip with a meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House, which the Philippine leader described as essential to advancing our national interest and strengthening that very important alliance. First, let's listen in.
During this visit, we will reaffirm our commitment to fostering our long-standing alliance as an instrument of peace and as a catalyst of development in the Asia-Pacific region and, for that matter, the rest of the world. I intend to convey to President Biden and his senior cabinet officials that the President is determined to forge an even stronger relationship with the United States in a wide range of areas that not only address concerns of our times, but also those that are critical to advancing our core interests. These areas include food security, agricultural productivity, development, and digital economy, energy security, climate change, cybersecurity, as well as ensuring our resilience from threats to our economy, including global supply chain disruptions and economic coercion.
According to the Presidential Communications Office, the PR-001 flight carrying Marcos and his official delegation landed at the Joint Base Andrews at 4:55 p.m. Sunday, Washington, D.C. time. That's 4:55 a.m. Philippine time. The President's itinerary began with a meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden, followed by an expanded meeting with key cabinet officials. He is also expected to sit down with legislators, major U.S. companies, and business groups.
Waiting for this moment na makakapunta dito si Presidente sa Washington, D.C. Dahil napaka-importante itong relationship natin sa Amerika. I've been here as an ambassador for quite some time, and I have never seen so much excitement, not only from the people here, but mostly even the government officials of the United States. They really would like to get a chance to meet the President because they see him as a progressive president. They see him as somebody who knows the value of our relationship, the result of which will be something that will redound to our country, our peace and security, economic security, and most important of all, economic prosperity for everyone.
Ahead of the U.S. visit, U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller slammed China over the near collision of one of its ships with a Philippine patrol boat a week ago, saying it was a reminder of Beijing's harassment and intimidation in the disputed waterway. First, let's take a look.
This is Philippine Coast Guard BRP Malabrigo MRRV 4402.
So far, ito yung pinakamalapit, no? Kasi ito hindi ko na-expect talaga na ibablock tayo ng ganon. Kasi nakita man natin nung una, shadowing lang sila, no? So muntik nang mag-collide yung aming bow, no? Kung hindi pa napigilan yon. Nag-back actually ako, meaning yung engine ko, kumbaga binak ko yung yung power para ma-suppress yung yung speed ko para hindi kami magbanggaan.
Conducting lawful routine maritime patrol within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. In accordance with international and Philippine national laws, we are proceeding according to our planned route.
We hope you can cooperate with our teams. Do not take inappropriate behaviors which will interfere with maritime security.
Every time na magkakandak kami ng RORI mission, meaning rotation reprobation mission, providing security sa Philippine Navy supply boats, every time nakakaranas kami ng ganyan. They will block us, no? While papalapit kami sa ayungin, they will cross our bow, no? Until such time na ibablock na kami, na hindi na ako makakagalaw kasi minsan katulong din nila yung Chinese Maritime Militia. Nandun sumasama sa pag-block sa atin para hindi tayo makapasok sa ayungin.
Consequences entailed will be borne by you. Over.
Okay na daw, pwede na magbaba. Mantail bridge. On. Now, the United States has accused China of harassment and intimidation of Philippine vessels and called on Beijing to end provocative action in the South China Sea after this recent near collision between a Chinese vessel and a Philippine Coast Guard boat. We call upon Beijing to desist from its provocative and unsafe conduct, according to U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller in a statement on Saturday. The State Department also warned that an attack on Philippine security forces or public vessels would trigger a U.S. response. President Biden has been working to bolster relations with Asian allies as the U.S.-Chinese relationship remains in a historically deep chill. The Philippines' proximity to key sea lanes and Taiwan gives it strategic importance. Beijing claims sovereignty over almost all the entire South China Sea, ignoring an international ruling that its assertion has no legal basis. Meanwhile, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said that the Philippine boats was the one that intruded without China's permission and called it a premeditated and provocative action. Let's listen in.
船只搭载记者冲闯仁爱礁海域，是一场有预谋的挑衅行为，蓄意找茬碰瓷，并借机炒作。中方对此表示严正抗议和强烈不满，敦促菲方尊重中国在南海的领土主权和海洋权益，停止采取导致局势复杂化的行动。
Now, AFP was one of several media outlets that witnessed the incident after journalists were invited to join two Philippine Coast Guard boats on a 6-day patrol of the waters, visiting a dozen islands and reefs. The Philippine vessels approached Second Thomas Shoal, known in China as Rinai Jiao, in the Spratly Archipelago. As one boat, the BRP Malapascua, which was carrying Filipino journalists, neared the shoal, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel more than twice its size sailed into its path. AFP journalists watched the incident from the other Philippine Coast Guard boat, which was less than a kilometer away. The Second Thomas Shoal is home to a small Philippine military contingent on board a rusty World War II-era U.S. ship that was intentionally grounded in 1999 to reinforce the Philippines' territorial claims in the South China Sea. Meanwhile, during an interview with the press en route to Washington, D.C. for an official visit, President Marcos Jr. assured that the Philippines will not be used as a staging post for any military action amid tensions in the Indo-Pacific region. The best move for the Philippines, he said, is to stay within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, as the bloc plays a crucial role in keeping peace and lowering tensions in our area. He also said, keep ASEAN solid, strong, and united so that if that's the case, if we have a consensus and areas of agreement, then it will remain strong, and that it will be that ASEAN will still be the one to conduct and to lead the political fortunes of all the other countries around Asia. That's exactly, he said, what we want to avoid. The Philippine leader urged China to follow through on his agreement with President Xi Jinping reached earlier this year in Beijing to set up a direct communication mechanism on issues involving overlapping claims in the South China Sea. While Manila has formed its team, President Marcos said Beijing has yet to do the same. Beijing claims sovereignty over almost the entire South China Sea, ignoring an international court ruling that its assertion has no legal basis. Meanwhile, President Marcos Jr. will advance the Philippines' priorities through regional and multilateral cooperation in various areas during his attendance at the 42nd Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Indonesia in May. That, according to a Foreign Affairs official. Here's Department of Foreign Affairs Office of ASEAN Affairs Deputy Assistant Secretary Angelito Nayan. Let's listen in.
This is the fourth time Indonesia has assumed responsibility as chair of ASEAN, having been the ASEAN chair in 1976, 2003, and 2011. And this year's theme is ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth. The President is expected to assert the importance of demonstrating ASEAN's centrality in the region amidst geopolitical rivalries and advancing the Philippines' priorities in ASEAN through regional and multilateral cooperation in areas such as long-term food and energy security, efforts towards economic recovery, combating transnational crimes, upgrading of technical and vocational education and training, adopting climate and disaster resilient technologies, and transitioning to renewable and alternative energy technologies, and the protection of migrant workers, among others. You would be interested to hear that one of the important outcomes of the summit is a leader's declaration on combating trafficking in persons caused by the use and misuse of technology. The statement is yet to be finalized, but this is something that the Philippines fully supports, owing to our advocacy in ASEAN on the protection of migrant workers and the Philippines' role as lead shepherd for ASEAN cooperation against trafficking in person under the framework of the Senior Officials Meeting on Transnational Crime.
Meanwhile, DFA spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said the opening ceremony of the 42nd ASEAN Summit will be held in the morning of May 10. Following the plenary session, a series of interfaces among ASEAN leaders and representatives and/or delegates of relevant ASEAN bodies are scheduled on the same day. The ASEAN leaders will also hold interfaces with the ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly, or the AIPA, the ASEAN Youth Representatives, ASEAN Business Advisory Council, or ASEAN ABAC, or ASEAN-BAC, meanwhile, or high-level task force on the ASEAN community's post-2025 vision. Following the leaders' decision on the application of Timor-Leste for membership at the 40th and 41st ASEAN Summit in 2022, the ASEAN leaders are expected to adopt a roadmap on Timor-Leste's full membership in ASEAN at the summit. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said Singaporeans must remain united and uphold the country's good standing in the world. This amid an unprecedented global situation that is graver than what Singapore has ever experienced for a very long time. Let's listen in.
The troubled external environment will create new stresses and strains on our society. High inflation because of the Ukraine war will cause difficulties for many households, especially lower and middle-income families. Tensions between China and the US will expose our population to emotional pulls, commercial pressures, and influence campaigns from one side or the other to take their point of view and support their cause. The fracturing of the global trading system will mean slower, more uncertain growth and greater disruption to industries and jobs, to businesses and workers. We must not allow these pressures to divide Singaporeans along fault lines in our society, whether old or new. In this new troubled world, it is all the more important for us to close ranks. Divided, we stand no chance. We must do our best to see eye to eye on the fundamentals and try to appreciate each other's perspectives, even if we cannot always agree. We must not shy away from hard choices, but deal squarely with difficult issues based on facts and sound analysis.
Politics is a family affair for the Thian Thong clan, one of Thailand's most enduring political dynasties, with 5 members running in next month's general election for different parties. They are one of a number of families woven into the fabric of Thai politics, the most famous of which is the Shinawats, whose patriarch Thaksin was prime minister from 2001 to 2006 and continues to loom large from exile abroad.
You know, and when you do the family business, you only take care of the company, only your area. But now I think like when we get into the politician, it gives you opportunity to do something more than that, something even more responsible, more further than that. Like you're able to take care of your community. You can go further, like your community, your province, and also further to the country. With all it's just like everyday talk. It's just our routine to talk about like, hey, and what happened to this area when people come to you today, and what happened, and what is your problem, and how we're going to solve the problem. It's just like one of part of our life, I think.
The financial rewards of elected office, an MP earns around $3,500 a month, may be little more than loose change to these ultra-wealthy clans, but the influence it brings can be highly profitable to their business interests. The Thian Thong family built their wealth on a successful logistics business in their eastern heartland, which includes a major border crossing to Cambodia, and have dominated the region's politics since the 1970s. Sorawang is running for Pheu Thai, the main opposition party riding high in the polls, while the 2 women are with the army-backed Palang Pacharat Party, or PPRP, which led the outgoing ruling coalition. Sorawang's brothers are also running for Pheu Thai, Surachart in a Bangkok constituency, and Surakyat on the party list.
Then he separated Sakyat from Prachinburi. That's the reason why a lot of people were saying they cannot abandon Thian Thong family, even though my cousin still in Palang Pacharat Party.
Rural Thailand is threaded with the influence of these rich, powerful clans, and part of their local support rests on personal as well as political interventions. To voters, they can offer a measure of local stability and influence in a kingdom with a turbulent political history marked by a dozen coups since the end of absolute monarchy in 1932. Kwan Ruen Thian Thong, her daughter Truench, and nephew Sorawang are all contesting the 3 constituency seats up for grabs in Sakao. In other news, former UN Chief Ban Ki-moon urged the Myanmar military to halt violence in the conflict-racked country and engage with its opponents to end the bloody crisis. The military must make the first steps, Ban said, following a 2-day trip to Myanmar, where he met Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing and senior military officials. Mr. Ban also said the National Unity Government, or NUG, a shadow administration dominated by lawmakers from Suu Kyi's party, which is working to overturn the coup, must be part of any lasting solution. The military has shown no willingness to engage with its opponents, including the NUG, which it has designated as a terrorist organization. The junta justified its power grab with unproven allegations of fraud in 2020. Polls won resoundingly by Suu Kyi's party and has promised to hold fresh elections. Ban said holding elections under current conditions risks further violence and division, and the results not being recognized by the people of Myanmar. Ban visited Myanmar in his capacity as a member of the Elders, group of world leaders founded by Nelson Mandela, which works to promote peace and diffuse conflicts. In tonight's other news, government officials led by the Department of Foreign Affairs, Secretary Enrique Manalo, welcomed 17 Filipino evacuees at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. DMW Secretary Susan Ople earlier flew to Cairo to lead the distribution of welfare assistance to evacuated OFWs from Sudan. Take a look.
Iba naman, they want also to have access to livelihood and employment opportunities, so we will work that out. with the concerned agencies. DSWD will step in to provide financial aid.
Now, the group arrived past 6:30 p.m. at Terminal 3 in Pasay City via Qatar Airways flight number QR204. And among the evacuees from conflict-torn Sudan are 8 hotel workers. The 8 fled from Khartoum, Sudan, and arrived in Greece on board a Greek military aircraft. They were received by Philippine Ambassador to Greece, Giovanni Palek. On Friday, the 17 repatriates flew out of Athens, Greece, and Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, including the 8 hotel workers after representation with the Greek government through the Philippine Embassy in Athens. Now, the embassy received the group in Athens on the morning of Friday and arranged for their flight back to the Philippines through the DFA Assistance to Nationals Fund. The other 9, including 1 infant, fled capital Khartoum via Port Sudan, where they boarded a C-130 plane of the Saudi Royal Air Force bound for Jeddah. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, provided the repatriation tickets for the 8 workers, while the consulate arranged for the flight of the other evacuee, a student. The Philippine Consulate General in Jeddah issued travel documents to those who did not have their original passports. In other news, the Iglesia ni Cristo teamed up with the government of Bahrain in conducting a beach cleanup drive. Our Middle East correspondent Lorlyn Kalimlim reports from Myanmar, Bahrain.
Right now, we are here at Najma Seaside Fair for a cleanup drive activity organized by the Social Development Services Committee of the members of the Iglesia ni Cristo here in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Since the cleanup drive coincides with Eid al-Fitr celebration, members of the Iglesia ni Cristo, together with their household, excitedly went to the seaside to participate with the said activity. And in addition to Earth Day celebration, the main goal of this drive is to ensure seaside is kept clean, pleasant to visit, and safe to the environment. Participants of all ages actively remove garbage, plastics, bottles, and the like in spite of the striking heat of the sun.
This activity was really fun for me to also help out in taking care of our environment po, and also to see all the other brethren help out in taking care of our environment. Also po, as Binhi, it was good to see my other fellow Binhi members and the other kids po help out their parents in cleaning, and I hope that the Binhi will continue to also be active in the church activities and grow up to really take value and importance po of our environment.
Kami pong mga kaanib sa Iglesia ni Cristo at may tungkulin sa kapisanan ng pansambahayan ay nagsagawa ngayon ng isang aktibidad na tinatawag namin cleanup drive. Sa kabila po ng holiday ngayon dito sa amin, nagpapasalamat po kami ng marami dahil marami pong nakipagkaisa. At since ito po ay public service, hindi po kami nahirapan humingi ng permiso sa aming pong gobyerno. Nagpapasalamat po kami sa ating tagapamahala at sa aming tagapangasiwa sa patuloy nilang pagsuporta sa ganitong mga aktibidad ng kapisanan ng pansambahayan.
Magandang umaga po mga mahal namin mga kapatid. Bilang kaani po sa Iglesia ni Cristo, ay ito po ay napakagandang pagkakataon, lalo-lalo na po sa paglilinis nga po sa karagatan o kalikasan. At ginawa na rin po namin ito bilang banding po ng aming sambahayan at ang aming buong purok po. Kami po ay tunay pong masaya sa mga ganitong mga aktibidad sa loob ng Iglesia ni Cristo.
Good morning. This cleanup drive done by the Buklod and the Kadiwa organization of the Church of Christ, Myanmar, Bahrain. This event is a good example to our young brethren, taking care of the environment. So we will have a place to enjoy in the future. So as Buklod organization members, we have to show to our young brethren how to take care of the environment. And thank you for the church administration for letting us have this activity so we could show the community and our own organization how to take care of our environment. Thank you, Paul.
What motivates us members of the Church of Christ to take part in activities like this, such as a cleanup drive, is to shine as lights in this world. we know many people in this world don't really take care of our environment, so we want to truly stand out and show the people that we members of the Church of Christ also take care of our environment. And this is a way for us to do good and to be another means to share our faith with the rest of the people of this world.
Conducting a cleanup drive is an inspiring move, showing environmental awareness, leading as a good example not only to the community but to the rest of the world. This is Lorlyn Kalimlim, your Eagle News correspondent from Bahrain, and we live in extraordinary times.
And finally in our news, the Super Mario Brothers movie easily held its first place position on North American movie screens this weekend, while its accumulated global total push passed the $1 billion mark, according to analysts. Take a look. Walang score. Now, the video game-based film earned an estimated $40 million for the Friday through Sunday period in the U.S. and Canada, for a domestic total so far of $490 million, according to industry watcher Exhibitor Relations. With overseas earnings now at $532 million, its accumulated global total has hit $1.02 billion. Now, that makes Super Mario, a joint project of Universal, Nintendo, and Illumination Studios, the year's first film to pass the $1 billion mark, and only the 10th animation ever to do so, according to The Hollywood Reporter. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.